Hi, I'm Jason Schaefer, and we're in the briefing room, and we are so fortunate to have an amazing individual today. And she is so amazing. I actually printed something off. I want to read this so people know who we're talking to. So today's guest is someone who knows how to move ideas from the meeting room, the briefing room, to the real impact in the community. Delaney Russell is a West Valley native who currently serves as a government affairs advisor for Southwest Gas Corporation, where she leads local government and community outreach efforts, aligns infrastructure and safety priorities with public needs, and keeps safety at the center of every conversation. No small task, and she does it with both clarity and conviction. Before stepping into the energy sector, Delaney served as regional director for First Things First, overseeing a $4.9 million regional budget, shaping grant strategy that strengthened early childhood education and family support systems. Translation, she knows how to turn big picture policy into real world outcomes that matter to families. Delaney is a Westmark Emerging Leader Award recipient, serves as the Southwest Valley YMCA Advisory Board, co-chairs the West Valley Regional Chamber's Emerging Leaders and Young Talent Committee, is a proud Leadership West Class 31 alum, best class ever, and just completed her Master's of Public Administration at ASU. Boom, I saw that. She is smart, grounded, community-minded, and deeply invested in the future of the West Valley. We are lucky to have her in the briefing room today. Let's get into it. Let's start by giving us let's start with like an interesting fact. Why don't you tell us a fun fact about Delaney Russell?
Ooh, a very fun fact about me that I think is fun. Others may find as mundane and boring, but I collect coasters. Coasters. So whenever you go somewhere and you sit down at a bar or a restaurant, generally like not the Corona coaster that just comes, right? There are coasters from all over the world, and they tell such wonderful stories. I have vintage coasters from the 1940s. I have coasters from a little bar in Edinburgh that my parents went to that was founded in like the 1300s. The coaster's not that old, but I think you get the idea.
Yeah.
So I collect coasters. Don't bring me home a snow globe. Don't bring me home a magnet. Bring me home a coaster.
I love it. By the way, we have we have our New Penny Coffee. New Penny Cafe. Go get some
shout out New Penny.
We have some cool coasters here.
I did see these.
That's I always love like little facts about people and because there's always like a deeper meaning behind it, right?
100%.
It is funny. Like I immediately when you said that, I was thinking about somebody that told me a riddle once about like what's something that travels the world and it's always in the corner. A stamp. But when you were saying like the coaster, it's like that's funny because it's like all around the world. Like it's something,
everywhere.
It's universal. Everybody uses coasters, and it's like where that can Oh, that's cool. I was going to ask you if it was a 1300, like if the coaster was from 1300.
Definitely
so I'm
not
glad you
old.
threw that in there. So, hey, like we met through Leadership West.
We did.
Class 31, best class ever. We got to keep saying that. But I always like one thing I want to start this out with is I love in leadership curiosity.
Okay.
And I think you are like the biggest proponent of that. Like your curiosity and leadership and how like that class was always so awesome. How it didn't matter who was speaking to us. You had these inquisitive questions. You always made people think that we were so interested in what they were doing. We were sometimes, but you were so talk to me about like curiosity and how important that is to you.
So I am a firm believer in always be learning, right? It's a philosophy. It's something that even through my master's program, being in a growth mindset was something that was always reinforced. And so I really value the opportunities to learn. And it's sort of twofold. One, I think that there's nothing worse than like leaving a space with an expert and you don't get answers to the questions that you have in your mind, right? So why not take an opportunity to ask? But what I also found was that there are people that sometimes get really nervous to speak up. And so, no surprise, shocker, I love to talk. But I realized that in me asking questions, maybe I'm giving space for other people to also be a little bit curious. So it's twofold, right? I get to learn selfishly from people that are content experts, but also I get to make space for other people to maybe also feel comfortable asking questions. So yeah, always be learning, always be in a growth mindset, sort of my belief there.
Great book, by the way. I love it. I think, it's something very strange in like where we grow as leaders. Like sometimes people don't realize like you learn more from other people, like sometimes like interactions and like it's not just like reading books all day. I know those are great, but it's like I love the dialogue between leadership and like sometimes talking to people and just learning what made them successful. Like, and I still remember going to courses growing up and or even in school, and people would be like, "Jay, do you like sit around and read the books all day long at home?" I'm like, Actually, I didn't read the book at all. And they're like, but yeah, in class, you like ask all these questions and it's like you read the book. I'm like, no, I'm thinking about like how I would use what we were learning or how I would apply it. And to me, sometimes it's more authentic and like how to place those things. So talk about like Leadership West, like, what was that like, that opportunity, especially meeting so many people throughout the West Valley? Like, can you kind of talk about that in leadership?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I loved the 10 months that Leadership West was. I think there is something so special about being able, especially now, right? Like post graduation, being able to drive around the West Valley and say like, oh, Tennille had a hand in what's happening in Buckeye, or, oh, Aaron's doing this over with the chamber. And so there's some excitement in that, right? Like being so connected and rooted, not just as like a West Valley native, but in the friendships that we built in that. I'd say secondary to that, going back to the point of curiosity, I just love learning how things work. And I think that there's so much more that goes into the development of the region. And so being able to sit there and really be in depth with people for 10 months was just like the best experience that I could have asked for. I think too, there's a piece of that where this last year really helped challenge my mindset on and my beliefs around like what is leadership at its core, and how do you distinguish leaders and bosses, and how do great impactful leaders really navigate change and struggle, and what does that look like? And so there was a lot. It was the technical side of it, it was the emotional side of it too, it was that personal development and growth side of it. So it was quite a wonderful experience. I'm so thankful for it. I love it when Michelle's like, can you come and get involved in this? Absolutely, sign me up. So it's been great to reflect on. I'm so thankful for it. I try and push it now however I can. So yeah, it's been phenomenal. I'm so blessed to have gone through that.
But like, even speaking of that, like, you come from a family of leaders. Like you like your family has been invested in this community. Can you talk about that kind of a little bit?
Yeah. So I feel really fortunate just to have the parents that I do, and they are leaders in their respective sectors. So I'll touch on my mom because my mom doesn't always get as much of a shout out, but my mom is a NICU nurse and a developmental specialist, and she helped open up a couple of hospitals out here in the West Valley, and my mom saves babies' lives. Like, how cool and special is that? My mom saves the lives of these really tiny NICU babies, and my mom has led research that helps support babies that are born dealing with substance withdrawal, and so really revolutionizing how do we create care capacities in NICUs, and then how do we support these families. So my mom's been a leader in her field for the last 30 years, and she's quite wonderful. And then this year she started her city council journey, right? And so that's been so exciting to see my mom in this space. And, for the last 20 years, we'd watched my dad do that and be there, but to see my mom do it is quite incredible. And she's the only healthcare voice on city council for Avondale. And just really incredible to watch her flourish in this space and bring that perspective. And then for my dad, he retired last year after 18 years of service to the city of Avondale. And, he served as mayor for 10 years. He was vice mayor and he was a council member. And, my dad went back and finished school. My dad never had a degree. And his last year as mayor, he graduated with his bachelor's in government. Quite ironic there. But, just watching my parents really take this idea that, it's not enough just to be a member of our community. We have to be embedded. We have to serve. We have to give back. And so from, the time I was really like 5 or 6 years old, that was the framework that I watched my parents lead with. And just amazing to see my parents serve in their respective ways and to do it in a community that, I called home for so long. It's so special.
Yeah, it's a pull a thread there. I heard you say service a couple times. And, I get it a lot, as a military person. People are like, oh, I wish I could serve. I wish I served in the military. And it's like, I feel like the military is such a small piece of service. Like, there is so many other ways you can serve with just as much impact as a military person. Yeah. Can you talk about like what that, because you're in government now, like you work that, like what does service mean to you, and what does that word mean to you?
I think service is taking the opportunity to contribute in a way that your skill sets align with, but also that help cater to the communities that we're in. So I serve on a couple boards, and that's in a very professional capacity, right? Furthering the work when it comes to natural gas and energy diversity in the state and in Maricopa County. So that's, one way of service. But then I think there's also ways that we contribute within sort of our capacities and our mechanisms. So, I sit on the Southwest Valley YMCA advisory board, and I remember when that YMCA opened, I was 8 years old, and that rock wall was the bee's knees to me. It was so cool. And so service to me in that capacity looks like, we had an angel tree drive last week and being able to contribute to the angel tree, but then also how do we support additional funds to help bolster up our childcare capacity. So I think service is really, how do we give back in ways that align with our skill sets, our values, our means and mechanisms? And I think too, people get really defeated because they go, well, I don't have time to sit on an advisory board, or I don't have, a lot of money to contribute to an angel tree. But service can also be, can you share what your local food bank is doing on Facebook, right? And can you reach someone that maybe wouldn't have been reached otherwise? So I think service looks very different. I think service is all encompassing in some ways and very niche in other ways. And service to me is just showing up in my community and making sure that I'm having as meaningful and as strong of an impact as I can. Not service, military. I respect, the time and the effort and the career that you built in that. And that's very different service. But, both are meaningful and both have a great impact. And yeah.
What is your why? Like I feel this a lot. I get this a lot. Like, like especially like for me, transitioning, someone transitioning from the military is like, God, I got to go find my why again. Like, what is it? But I look at like someone so passionate as you, like you bring light to anything you do. But what is your why? Like, what is that why? Is it service? Like, what is it?
I know, have you heard of the Boy Scout rule? Like, leave it better than you found it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I heard that when I was probably 10 or 11, maybe around the time that I was doing Girl Scouts and we were just talking about the Boy Scouts. But I didn't know it at the time, but I think that was really sort of instrumental for me. And as I got older and as I started really getting into my career, I worked in the nonprofit space for a little bit. I worked, for the state, contributing back to the region that I grew up in. And always at the back of my mind was this mindset of, I need to leave it better than I found it, which is really hard, right? Like when your dad's the mayor and your mom's saving babies, like how do you make the community better than the way you found it? But for myself now, I look at, am I taking on opportunities that really do make an impact in that way? And, I feel so blessed to live in the West Valley. I think that's something, especially now as my job takes me all over the county, comparing the East and the West Valley and the communities that we built out here and just the networks of support, and especially being in the nonprofit and social services space. I mean, like that's my why. Like there are people that are working so much harder and have given their lives to service in this way. And like being able to just be a piece of that is like, I feel so incredibly blessed to be able to do that. And so my why is really just, I had parents that modeled it. I had church community that modeled it. I have professional people that model it. And it's like, I want to contribute just as meaningfully. So that's my why. And, one day we hope to like raise our family out here. And so to be able to tell them the story of this is the West Valley and this is it. Like it's so cool to think about.
That's funny because I was making sure you didn't say your why was like rescuing cats.
Oh my goodness.
So
I know we're up to 3 now. So
3.
We're up to 3.
And they're all rescued.
They're all rescues.
Oh man.
I know.
So you cat mom. So you have a family. You guys have a family.
A little cat family. They made the Christmas card this year.
They made the Christmas card.
Yeah.
Christmas card.
Yeah,
Wow.
they did.
Okay. Trouble.
I know. We got booted off my parents' Christmas card. Their dogs are now on it. Yeah, Lauren and I not on it. So now our cats are on the Christmas card. It's fair exchange.
I love it. I just think it's crazy, like, how much you're involved in. But also, let's peel this back too. Like, I feel like everything you're involved in, you're having impact. I think a lot of people get involved and they, they're behind the scenes. Maybe like they're trying to find their way. They don't know how to find. It seems like anything that you're involved in, you find a way to make impact. Can you kind of highlight, like, what does that mean? Like, it's like make a difference is different than just being there,
Yeah.
And so I feel like you're making a difference in all these different things.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. So I'll actually sort of backtrack on that a little bit. I have always been huge on intentionality. Mm-hmm. I think that no matter what we do, whether it's a career change, whether it's deciding to be on a nonprofit board or like whatever it is, we need to be intentional in how we show up. And so the spaces that I'm in professionally, personally, in service I'm very intentional about those spaces. I've had opportunities presented to me, and while I feel incredibly honored to be considered, I also know that those aren't spaces where I may be the best contributor. And so I've had to learn to say no to some of those things. So because of that, the spaces that I am in and the ways in which I'm serving, I can give wholeheartedly, knowing that this is where I'm committed to being. And, going back to the YMCA, this YMCA had a tie to my childhood, right? And then even when I was at First Things First, this was a high quality rated center. I had great relationships with the executive directors, being able to see the transformation and what the YMCA does. There was a connection there. Same with the West Valley Regional Chamber, and being able to sit as a co-chair of that committee. Like, I feel so passionately about supporting young professionals and young leaders. And so those were intentional decisions that allowed me to show up in these places and give wholeheartedly, because that is where, my passions, my values, but also like my personal beliefs aligned. So yeah, it's sort of twofold in that way.
That's good. I feel like there's so many people that just they're waiting to get involved. They're waiting for, instead of just like, you seem like you're all in, like, let's go, give me the next thing. And I'm going to try, and I'm going to make impact. And that's so awesome. So what is the next thing? Like, you just got your master's, like, how do you find, like, what is the next passion you get into? Or, because I think something too, you have to go against is, you spread yourself so thin. Are you making the impact you want, and you want to impact the West Valley? And so importantly, I mean, this is a community, like you said, it's amazing, but it's growing so fast. So where is Delaney going next?
So I actually thought about this sort of in the last week or two. So I finished school on the 4th, but I graduated on the 16th. And so I've had a couple weeks of, not having to check Canvas and do assignments. And really this last week I've thought about, okay, so what do I do with all this free time that I have mentally?
All this free time,
my quote. So one thing that I'd like to do is really try and get involved in something that's a little bit more like regional focus, like East and West Valley. And, whether that's Valley Partnership or a different leadership program, I think, kind of investing in that space would be really cool. But also, I mean, kind of selfishly and personally, I think this might be a good time to like reset and recharge a little bit. And I think maybe you experience this too when you hit retirement this year of like, man, I have all this free time now. What do I do? And it feels a little overwhelming, but also you have your checklist of things, right? So I have not been able to read books for fun for like the last several years. And I really want to get into like reading again and really taking time to read, which sounds so silly, right? When you talk about sitting on boards and contributing in all of these ways, but something about that, like just being able to fill my cup in that way. Also too, I want to go back to kind of the basics of things and really evaluating, have I shown up wholeheartedly in the ways that I wanted to, and what does that look like? Work keeps me really busy. I get to sit on a lot of different boards and do a lot of different things, and that's exciting. But in my personal time too, I want to really ensure that I'm investing in the spaces that I've agreed to be in. So I'd like to read. I'd love to go hike some more, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But also too, like taking more time to spend with people, I think is also a priority. I've been able to like lean on you a lot lately, and some of our other friends from Leadership West, best class ever, class 31. We will keep saying that, but I think that would be what's next. And I have no doubt that there will be an opportunity that presents itself. And going back to being intentional, when you see it added to like LinkedIn in a couple months, you'll know that that's the space where I'm meant to be right now.
I love it. It is something that's important. Like just at the beginning with curiosity and like always growing as a leader, I think sometimes we go so fast, so hard, and we're like working so hard that you forget sometimes not a mental reset, but just a reset of like calming at the noise that's around you and just recentering what you're thinking about and going back to the basics. Like it helps you. It's in the military. Sometimes I call it like the black box theory, where Olympic athletes get like this, where they work so hard and they've made a body part so special and it's the best ever. And then they go like, if you're a skier, you decide, hey, I'm going to go work on pull-ups, and like, why is a skier working on pull-ups? Like their legs are like, they don't need their arms. But it's just doing something different that re-inspires something in your body to make you go, oh, this is helping me. Oh, I could do this over here. And it's fascinating. So recharges are good.
Recharges are great. And I think we really, we put a lot of emphasis on self-care. I've seen that shift, in the last couple of years. So it's a little bit of self-care, but I think too, we have to find ways to stretch our brain, right? And I joked that I love to read textbooks because I'm a geek in that way. And like, give me the textbook conceptual knowledge, especially in school, right? But to be able to read something that's a little bit different and to stretch my brain in that way, or to engage with people that I maybe otherwise wouldn't engage with in like my day-to-day for work, stretch my brain in that way, right? So yeah, it's recharge, it's self-care, it's all of the above.
Yeah, I had somebody recently the other day tell me like, hey, have you ever thought about when you read a book, read it from the end back. Don't start at the beginning.
What?
And I was like, that's fascinating. And it was like one of those things, we always do things a certain way all the time. Yeah. Everything we do. And it's like sometimes just doing something different, not only it makes you feel a little cool, like, oh, I'm breaking the rules, but read from the back. Like go to the end, read the last chapter, the conclusion, and then go backwards in the book and read it from there and see what it sounds like. And it's like, I'm like, oh, so I'm going to do it. The next book I read, I'm going to read the conclusion, figure out what the book's about, and then go backwards and just see from a different perspective of like finding a solution and then go, how did they get there? And then going back instead of like the build up and see, I don't know. It's just something different,
right?
Just that we've never done. And I'm like, oh, I was like inspired. I'm like, no, I'm doing that. I can't believe they just asked me like, have I ever thought about it? I'm like, no, I haven't actually. So, good segue. Had to throw that out there. Sorry. But,
for it.
So you have to read a book backwards and tell me how it was.
Okay. I've got a couple on the nightstand that are like waiting to
what
be
what is in the queue?
So The Body Keeps a Score is currently what I'm reading. It talks about specifically trauma and how our body holds on to trauma.
Okay.
There's another one, The Heart of Healing, and it talks about the mind-body connection. There's, oh my goodness, there's a couple. Social Justice Parenting is one that's on the nightstand too. So I've had that one for a while. Haven't really dove into it, but yeah. So a little bit on like the mental health side of it. Trauma, but also, just really interesting.
So you have multiple books on your nightstand, and are you reading all of them or one at a time?
No, I would love to be the person that can like pick up one book, put it down, pick up another. My brain, for whatever reason, would like just gets fried, and so I have to commit to one. I have to be able to close it out, and then I have to move on to the next one.
All right.
So we'll get there eventually.
They're moving. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you talked about your mom, talked about your dad. I'd like to know like maybe like, who are like, give me like 3 people that you've kind of like admired on their leadership style, like how they've led and maybe learned from. I think everybody has, I don't want to say role models because I don't like that, but I think we all like have people that we kind of like looked at or admired or did research on because of their style. And like, I really like what this person did. Do you have 3 people that you kind of looked up to or like learned about and were like, oh, I want to model what they've done or I respect what they've done?
So I would say the people that I've really grown to model and respect from are like real people in my life. I love the idea too of having, more figurative people to look up to, right? But I think there's something really beautiful about having someone in your life immediately that kind of contributes to that. So I would say the first one, she's actually going through Leadership West right now. Her name's Katrina. She was my boss at First Things First. And she had met me years ago when she worked at Avondale Police Department. And she used to be the one to tell my dad that he couldn't just like drive his car in the parade, because she was like, no, Mary, you can't just like do whatever you want. And so I had always known of her, but never really met her. And then when I came on board at First Things First, she was my boss. And Katrina is the definition of like steadiness in like a hurricane. And I have watched her navigate, just so much, especially now in the early childhood space. It's been a really hard time to be in early childhood. And she leads with such conviction, but also such grace, and really gives opportunity for people to like challenge themselves and to make space for that discovery process. And so I think Katrina is one of the prime examples of a leader that I've just really modeled and taken after. And I would love to be like a fraction of the leader that she is. So shout out to Katrina. You're it, girl. Second to that, Mayor Marie Lopez Rogers was the mayor before my dad. And Mayor Marie is a woman who, she'll tell this story actually, and she's great for it, but she used to pick cotton on the fields where City Hall was built.
Wow.
Yeah. And Marie came from the social services background. The Family Resource Center in Avondale is actually modeled and named after her because of her contributions. And Marie was a woman that taught my dad how to lead with his heart. And Marie had such passion in all that she did, and really just emphasized the importance of putting our community first, because our community are the people that look up to us as leaders, and we need to let them know that we see them. And so, to this day, Maria is one of my dad's favorite people. She's one of my favorite people. And to have met her at a time in my life that was so pivotal. I mean, I think I was 7 when I met her. I'm so thankful for the fact that like our lives crossed paths in the way that they did. So,
wow.
And she's the definition of a public servant through and through. And then lastly, like, I'll give the shout out to my dad, like like shameless plug in that way. My dad did not get into this because, he had any desire to be a city council member or a mayor one day. He got into this because he was like, oh, I see opportunity here and I want to contribute. And I think when he came and did the panel for us on Civic Engagement Day, that was one of his answers, was like, I didn't think that I was going to be a council member, but here we are. And I watched my dad grow, and going back to that growth mindset piece, like my dad never had all the answers, and my dad leaned heavily on the people that knew what they were doing. And I remember having to watch my dad make difficult decisions on behalf of a community of 100,000 people, and watch him do it with like such grace and such patience and such curiosity. And I looked at that and I'm like, wow, how incredible that I get to see this. So yeah, I, love the Barack Obamas of the world and the AOCs of the world, but also I think here, like in our community, those are people that really help lead for me.
I think it's really fascinating. Like, my pastor said this a couple like months ago, and I've said it in different like opportunities, but it's like not thinking in days, thinking in decades.
Oh yeah.
And so like, a lot of leaders or people will think in like days, like this is really, let's go do this, or this is so important, but they don't think in decades. Like, oh, this is really cool if we set up these lights. But what if we set something up that could last for generations, like, and not just this month. And so it's sometimes the harder path. It's not the easy path. So like, right. What about like, following someone? I mean, your dad's a mayor. Your mom's a council member, saves babies' lives every day. Right. Thank you. Not 6 pound, 7 ounce baby Jesus, but we're, that's coming soon. But it's close to Christmas, but it's funny like how people don't travel the harder path, and it could be better down the road. So where has adversity, reached you, or is it hard to follow two leaders of that caliber? Like knowing that I have something, people look at me and knowing that I'm the mayor's daughter, or I'm the city council member's daughter, or I'm only here because I'm the mayor's daughter. Right. Have you dealt with that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I would say, so I'm very social. I get it from my dad. Mm-hmm. And my dad would always pull me. Do you want to come to this event? Do you want to come do this thing with me? And, at the time I just was like, oh, I get to like see things, and like, it's like take your daughter to work day. Right. And so, when I started to get into my field, especially the last couple years, a lot of the spaces that I was in professionally started to overlap with my dad a lot more. And I did have a little bit of that imposter syndrome. Like, oh, am I here because, I'm supposed to be here? Or am I here because Mayor Weiss like invited me? And then I would say there was something that flipped, I'd say a couple years ago, where I think it was probably around the time that Westmark had their Emerging Leaders Award. And I found out I was nominated. And I was like, me? Like, me? And I remember sitting down with Tanner, and that was the first time that I'd really, really had an experience that was my own in the same space as my dad. And it was so funny though, because that night, out of the 9 awards that were out, the Weiss name was on 5 of them. So my dad had 4 and I had 1, right? And so we kind of laughed, right? I called him and I said, Dad, I'm up for an award. It's at Best of the West. And he goes, oh, funny, I'm up for a couple awards too. And so we kind of chuckled about it. But yeah, I would say for a really long time, I struggled with, am I here because of my dad or am I here because of me? And what I didn't realize was that all of these years, my dad was helping build up my confidence to be in these spaces. And the people that my dad would introduce me to, I've carried on my own relationships with those people, and I've maintained my own relationships and really invested in those relationships. And so when we show up in the same space together, I don't feel like I'm competing for my dad's space. I feel like it's quite a privilege and an honor to be sharing that same space together. And we have people that we know mutually, but we get to engage with differently. And there's something so beautiful about that. So yeah, it's taken a while to sort of get over that, but I'm so thankful too. And being in the government affairs space, my entire job is to interact with municipalities. And I mean, I was probably the only 9-year-old who heard the word intergov, as a child, and now gets to use that in my day to day. And so it's really cool and special, like in reflection, that's sort of the pathway that it took. And so while I got to like stop my feet for a little bit and be like, oh, do people like me for me? It's like, oh no, I actually like I've started to build my own confidence in that way.
That's great. But I also think, though, it's probably what makes, going back to the curiosity you have or your work ethic or being in so many different committees or being involved in so much. It's almost like you have this passion to like prove people wrong. Like it grows in you, and you want to work harder than the next person, which is fuel to the fire, right? Like that's what we want to see, and it's seeds that grow, right? But if you didn't have a dad like that or didn't have the mom, would you have that work ethic, or would you be? And so they probably helped you a little bit get there, but that's all you, right?
Yeah.
And
so I think that it's interesting. The proving people wrong piece, I will say, is like one of those side effects, right? Like it comes as like a secondary factor. I have always, my dad will tell you too, like I've always had a certain drive. And I think it comes from, watching my parents work so hard. And there was a point in time where my dad had gotten laid off when I was younger, and we watched our family dynamic shift a little bit, and my mom had to pick up more shifts. And like, I've seen those transitions happen. And so, and my parents always said, you got to put your needs before your wants. And the way that they modeled that for me at the time that they did, I think was just so integrative and really helped shape as my like prefrontal cortex was developing. But for sure, like I think no differently. If my dad hadn't been on city council or my mom decided not to run and be a public servant, I think 100% I'd still have that drive. My dad always used to say, like, Delaney, the books will catch up to the brains. And it's like, no, I was always ahead, and I just graduated with like a 4.0, and like that doesn't come without like a lot of like blood, sweat, and tears on that. But yeah, I also just like want to work incredibly hard, and I get enjoyment out of working hard and contributing a lot. And I don't know, it's nice to be able to like prove people wrong, but also too, I think my focus is just, like I said, I want to show up intentionally in the spaces I'm in.
And that's good, because it's not the primary, it's an offshoot, but the primary is I want to work hard. I want to do this. I guess like I love that you have to accomplish the needs before the wants. That's just awesome. Like
100%.
we got to have that slogan on like a line. I love that. And it is like it's crazy that how that can inspire so many other things. So let me ask you this: is Delaney Russell the next mayor of what city? No. Well, your dad said no too. So like
he said no too.
Yeah. Is government? You're in government. So is that something one day that you would think I would want to get involved in? Because you've talked about some leaders that are politicians. Is that the next level of a service for you? Are you happy where you're at?
I'll give you sort of the behind the scenes like peek on that. So there is something from the briefing room. There is something so structured about government, which is good. Like we want our government to be structured, right? And I have seen my parents navigate that space, and I have such appreciation for it. And for any of our electeds in any capacity, like there is so much that goes on behind the scenes that we as the community like get a small fraction of. What I love about the space that I'm in right now is sort of that like quasi-government space. So I get to work with municipalities without that same intensive structure. And so is there like a Delaney in the future that one day may decide to run for mayor? Sure, potentially. But for where I'm at right now, and probably, talking about like, the next 5-10 years, I really see myself being more of a community member and contributor in other ways than on a dais. And, there's just something about it. And I think that there are people that are like meant to be up there. And there are people that when they're like, oh yeah, I'm a council member for the city of whatever, you're like, I see that. I think of Mayor Alexis, like she, like El Mirage is her community and she embodies that. And I hope that one day if I do decide, like I embody that just as well as her. But no, for right now, we're going to stick to this like quasi-government space and support the utility side of the region and the valley. And we'll call it a day.
So what is the kind of what is the thing you're working on most that you think that needs to change or we need to improve in the West Valley?
Ooh, I think that there is a lot of opportunity to close the loopholes or to close the loop. Is that the saying? Close the loop. I see a ton of, workforce pipeline initiatives over here, and a lot of social service providing over here, and a lot of, business and growth development happening over here, but we don't really have a way to like close that system up. I really love, if we're going to get technical, I love what Agua Fria is doing with the academies and really giving young kids an opportunity to engage in fields that may be of interest to them, to save them money to go to college, right? And to get them connected to internships. But then on, the flip side, coming from the social service space, I see how much like a lack of childcare impacts, those wanting to go back to work or pursue post-secondary education, and how we can share responsibility with some of those businesses that our chambers are pulling so hard to come into the Valley. So, I've taken the last probably 6 or 7 years to really build an understanding of how do we create communities and what all goes into that. And I think just closing the loop in some of those ways would be really ideal. And I think you have some entities that are doing a great job, that are really pushing for pipelines and really pushing for more holistic approaches. But I would love to see, government and business partnerships and communities really come together to create solutions in the West Valley. I mean, we're growing so quickly out here, so quickly, and it's not going to stop. And going back to like service and community, this is the community that I grew up in, and I want to see it thrive in all of its capacity. So yeah, I'd love to see some loop closing.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because also, I could talk about AI, could talk about data centers.
Yep.
We could talk about water. We're not going to talk about water. Power,
I mean, I am in the power space, but we'll divert on that one.
We could talk about power, because that's, I always hear people say in the West Valley, it's not water, it's power. That's the issue. But no matter what technology, no matter how fast we grow, it's still a people world. It's still like dealing with people. It's still relationships. And I think that's the most important thing when you think of the growth. Like we need those relationships, right, and as we lead the West Valley to wherever it's going to go. But it's grown a lot. So like you grew up here. Like how crazy is it to think about where you started in Avondale, or where were you born? Was it in Avondale?
Avondale.
Born and raised in Avondale. Where do you live now?
I'm in Glendale.
Okay. Is that allowed?
I mean, I spent a lot of tax dollars in Goodyear though, so it's like it's a little
no addresses. But you're in the West Valley
I'm
still.
in the West Valley.
Like how much has that growth? Like talk about the growth.
There's so much.
Yeah.
There's so much. I feel sometimes like my dad, when he'd be like, back in my day, right? Like that's the saying, like back in my day. And I live right by Vi Resort. And I remember when Vi Resort was dirt.
Yeah.
I remember when the Cardinal Stadium got built, right? Like that's how like West Valley ingrained we are. But I will say it's so cool to see. Yeah. It's so cool. And, we, for work, we have a project out in Buckeye at Teravalis. And I did a field ride out there a couple weeks ago. And I didn't realize like how big this community is.
Oh.
Insane.
Yeah.
Insane. 100,000 rooftops.
It's something. I'm not to be factual, but it's like if Verrado was like 7,000 square acres, Teravalis is like 30,000+ square acres. Like it just how big Verrado is, and Teravalis, like the scope and scale, like just Buckeye alone. Like what is it, like 13 cities in one if you covered the whole map? Like it, the size of the West Valley is insane. I think I heard something the other day that Desert Diamond Arena, like by 2035, more people will live west of that arena than east.
That's insane to me.
It's insane. But we need leaders like you. Like it's growing.
It's growing. And I think there's something so cool to say that like we live in one of the fastest growing counties. Yeah. We get to like work and play into of some of the fastest growing cities. Yeah. Like you don't get those opportunities often. And for myself to have opportunities to work with some of those municipalities and those entities so early on in my career, and to be exposed to them like through Leadership West and other ways is really cool. And I don't know, I feel like a geek and a nerd in that way, but truly, like, how exciting is that? Yeah. And, to see some incredible leaders from, our mayors and our council members, but also, like Michelle and what she's doing with Leadership West to really just catalyze on how do we build up the West Valley so that when that growth continues to happen, we have leaders that are equipped and ready to lead in those spaces. I mean, it's so cool. Like, I don't know why my parents decided Avondale, Arizona in 1995, but they did. And here we are. And that's pretty stinking fun. Like, I love that. It's so cool. It's so cool.
Well, I think your passion, I mean, it's energetic. It's inspiring. It like gets people fired up to work harder. Let me see, like I was like, we'll cut that out.
Just a little edit.
In closing, I think, like this has been an amazing conversation. What are like, if I'm a young leader in the West Valley and I want to be where Delaney Russell is one day, like what are some things that you like, fruit, some little nuggets you could pass on to somebody that say, this is some things that I would do to grow as a leader and to get where you want to be one day?
So I'll hit back on the first piece, which is curiosity.
Yeah.
Like, don't be afraid to be curious. I think some of our best leaders are the ones that ask the most questions and really want to lean into knowing more, right? Like, don't just ask to like be loud in a room, but ask to learn. So be curious. I think second, put yourself in positions that make you feel a little uncomfortable sometimes. Like 6 or 7 years ago would not be the one to ask questions in a room. I would not be the one to like raise my hand and make like an argumentative statement. But I think the more we grow in some of that uncomfortability, the better off we are. So that's something I stand firm in. And lastly, I think also to be observant of how you can contribute, right? And going back to that service and serving in capacities that are meaningful to us, I think we all have something that we can contribute, right? And so being intentional in the ways that you show up, knowing that you can serve, and it's going to look different than the person next to you, and you may not feel like it's as impactful as others, but it's still meaningful, right? So be curious, really lean into like being in those spaces that make you uncomfortable, and like find ways to be of service to others and to your communities. I think are how people can end up, being a Delaney Russell, but hopefully themselves, right, in the next 5-10 years.
And I agree with you. I think something that people sometimes forget is like we always want to find, like, we figure out something we're good at and we want to like do that all the time.
Right.
But I actually think the opposite. I agree with you. Like, what's that thing you're not really good at? Like, if you're not really good at speaking in public, man, you need to find every opportunity to be an MC or to do something. Like, work on that, because then no one can challenge your weakest point, or that becomes your best. I still remember crazy. I remember I was really focused on basketball. And I wanted to play basketball, like get better. And so I couldn't dribble with my left hand. So for like a whole summer, I tied my right hand behind my back. I would eat with my left hand, dribble.
Amazing.
I got so good, I couldn't shoot with my right hand, but are you going to challenge your weaknesses? What are you uncomfortable in? And I love that you said that. And then I think something, for any leader out there is also to find somebody to talk, like it's not rockets. We don't want to keep it all in, and like find those things. And then the other thing about all the groups, all the things you do, is like every seed is an opportunity to grow. Like, it doesn't matter how small an act of service you do, that has impact. It's better than what is before. So just get involved, be part of this amazing community. Any final words?
No, I appreciate the space that you're making in the briefing room to like talk
Let's
to
go.
people. But no, this has been great. And, I so appreciate you and being able to just tap on you and meet for coffee and talk. And, I just am so thankful that, we got to sit down and do this. So thank you.
Let's go. Well, we are lucky in the briefing room to have amazing leaders like Delaney Russell, who is going to have just amazing impact in the West Valley, doing amazing things for Southwest Gas and our community, and comes from an amazing family. So thanks, Delaney. And we will be looking for more great leaders to chat with on the briefing room. Thank you.
Thank you.